Welcome back, fellow shop rats. Today here in the shop, we're back on the Forsyth Duster, and we're going to be getting those doors aligned before we begin the big work of cutting out the entire floor pan on that car. We want to make sure that nothing twists or nothing shifts in that vehicle, and so the litmus test for me is always the door alignment. Door to fender, door to quarter panel. Very important to keep an eye on chassis twist and chassis flex. Now, one thing we don't know about this car is it was a drag car for all of its life, and even though the mileage is very low, it was used really, really hard. And so we don't know what kind of twists there may be in that chassis, so we have to have a baseline to start with. Remember that the work that we do isn't just about a Duster or an Oakland or a Challenger or a 47 Ford or any one of the other 9 cars that we have here. It is stuff that you can take and apply directly to what you're working on. So let's not talk about it. Let's just get into it. Let's watch the show intro. I'll see you in 30 seconds. I'm Mike, and this is My Car's Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
If you've been following along on the channel, you know that we've just been banging on the work here, not only on the Stitches Challenger, but on the Oakland. We haven't touched the Duster for a while, but we've also been doing a huge amount of improvement to the shop itself. We put a new garage door in. I just had a new big gas tank put in for the shop so that I don't run out of propane as often. We've also had snowstorms going on, and work has been busy, and well, wine, right? I mean, first world problems, I get it. But things have been busy, and one of the things that happens is, well, things go wrong. First of all, like my snowblower broke this morning, I still have to fix that. The furnace wouldn't fire up today. I had to fix that this morning before we could get started. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And the one thing, we get to the point, Mike, the one thing that seems to happen is the shop gets out of control in about a half a millisecond. And so while just recently I had all the benches cleaned off, they're full again, the floor is a mess. We've been just banging on the Challenger. Like I said, we've moved huge strides forward on that car, and we're going to continue. There's a whole bunch more episodes coming on that with all the fabrication that we're doing there. But in order to get over here to work on the Duster, which is the point, there is a huge pile of crap in the way. So we've got to get stuff cleaned up and get the Oakland slid forward. But we just got stuff to do. And I'm not going to bore you with cleaning up the shop and making room, but I just wanted to say that I think a lot of you, from the comments I've heard, struggle with the same thing, especially when you're working on multiple projects. I do have a couple of episodes that I'm working on talking about shop organization and the goals that I have and the priorities that I have, some of the changes that I've already mentioned on the channel and other things that I'm doing. But a lot of it is just right now because of just slamming between all of these different projects. One of the things that I do want to do is a commercial here for the 26 Oakland project. If you haven't seen the series on this car, check it out. It's been a ton of fun. This car was parked for 75 years. It had major engine issues that we fixed, and it's running and driving now after 75 years. My great-grandfather bought this car brand new in 1926, and we've just, for the last couple of years now, been getting it going. I'm darn proud of this project, and I wanted to share it with those of you who might not have seen it because you're here for the Mopar stuff, but I really would encourage you to go check this out. So I know we've talked about panel alignment in one of the Challenger episodes, but I wanted to just give you the baseline on what we're dealing with here specifically on this car. You can see that we're down just about 1/4 of an inch here, and that's consistent throughout the panel. The door gap is just a bit wide here, but it straightens out at the bottom, so that means the door is likely like this. But maybe not, because we're also wide here. This makes me question whether or not this car's got a little twist to it. We aren't going to be doing a restoration on this car, but you can see that we're wide at the top and tight at the bottom. So that means the back of the door needs to come up, but the front of the door also needs to come up. So this is why it's important to know what we're dealing with. I mean, being a drag car, this thing has probably, I'm sure this thing has been so abused and so forth that it would not surprise me one iota that the front of this car up here is just down from hole shotting, because you know, the car was drag raced from 1971 to 1980, mid 80s, let's just put it that way, when it was parked. And she was rode hard, so it wouldn't surprise me that this chassis is twisted, but we got to get this as close as we can. We are certainly not going to try to align the chassis on this car. That's not the point of this. We just want to get these doors close so that we can see if anything shifts. And it may be, now that I look at it, maybe this gap isn't as bad down here. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing it's not. It's this plate patch. Remember back in the day, these cars a lot of times were, I don't know when they stopped using chloride at the track, but that was the thing. They used basically salt water for burnouts and hard on the car. So that's a lot of where this rust has come from. And the car was just set in wet places, so it just is what it is. Another thing that we need to do is look at our hinge pins, see how bad they are. Not terrible. It's going to need to have a hinge kit hidden. Hinge kit put in it probably, but that's not going to stop us from being able to adjust this door unless we run out of adjustment. So I think the first thing to do is get the front of this door up where it belongs. This fender is actually a bit low, but that's not abnormal for a Duster. But we need to get this whole door just to Nova Scotia up here, and then once that's up, then we can work on getting the back of this door up in place. And so you got to think about what pivot points are you going to use. We will definitely, this should take care of itself when we raise the back of the door up, but we need to raise the whole door up first. So in order to do that, you have to get in here and get at all of those hinge bolts, which are kind of a pain in the tuchus. There are 3 bolts per hinge. One that goes this way here, one that goes this way here, and then 2 that come this way. What I generally, from the inside of the car, what I generally do is try to get these single ones loosened here. With the fenders off, it's a piece of cake. I don't want to take the fenders off, at least if we don't have to right now. We probably will end up with the fenders off, but not right now. But anyway, I want to get in there and try to get those loose a little bit, and then I usually leave those loose when I'm doing my door adjustments just to make my life easier. Hopefully these hinges aren't glued to the body. That'll be a pain in the butt if they are, but it'll be what it is. Here's a little pro tip for you. I always like to put a piece of tape. A swivel socket would be better, but I don't have any of those, so I always like to just put a piece of tape around this so that my socket doesn't fall off and fall down in the bottom of the fender and leave me having to do a whole bunch of cussing I don't want to do. Another thing that I do, get myself lined up here where it needs to go. Determine where that is, right there. Okay, I can get on it. So I'm going to put a little duct tape on the door here, right here, and on the fender so I don't chip the paint in both places. I'm going to be extremely careful, but it looks like this is already chipped up here a little bit, so that means these probably have been loosened up at one time or another. And again, working by yourself is always such a joy. Well, socket's not twisted enough for me to get in there. do it. I know you can. I believe in you. I already had it on there once, so I know it'll go. All right, we got it on there. Oops, I got my tape here in the wrong spot. That's no big deal. We'll just move it. Okay, on there now. I'll show you what I did on the back of the door to help myself a little bit. I want to make sure this is good and loose. I think the bottom one should be maybe a little easier to get at, I hope. Okay, that should be plenty loose. And this is why we tape our socket on there, because it does not want to come off. There we go. If I hadn't taped that socket on there, it would have come off the extension or off the swivel and probably fallen down to the bottom of the door. Simple little bungee cord. I was fighting the door because the front of the car is up in the air and the door kept wanting to swing shut, which was pinching on my socket. So that was part of the issue, was not having enough hands. So I got the front one on the top loose. Let's go down and get the bottom one loose, and then we'll go from there. So the other screws are accessed up in here and down here. So we need to get this kick panel out of the way, and there's a bunch of insulation up in there from the factory yet. These are pretty easy to get out, but there's a screw here, and we'll probably just remove this sill plate since we got to do that anyway. And then there's a screw up here, which I'm surprised is even still in there. Pull those screws out, be able to get at these bolts. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a mouse nest back there too, but one step at a time here. So let's open up the air box, but there we go. Yep, it's full of bees' nests. Keep that closed. It'll be just fine. It's a good thing that was on time lapse. That was a miserable thing. The easy bolts to access were no problem. They came loose. The top one, which is the biggest pain in the tushy, was the one that wouldn't come loose, and I couldn't keep the socket on. So I got it, but it took a lot of fighting. Anyway, the door's loose now. You can see we're flopping around like an old floppy thing, and that's good. Some people say, well, why don't you just keep it, you know, just loosen a little bit. You know what? I just soon get it done with. Loosen the whole thing up, put it exactly where I want it, and I tighten everything down. So that's what we're going to do next, is do that. So we need to lift the whole door up. Got a couple tricks we'll show you on that, and then we'll go from there. As is typical, I've seen this so many times, when the hinge pins get out of adjustment, people keep slamming the door, and eventually it breaks the striker loose. So we got to get that straightened out. That's a little better now, and we're going to have to just tack weld that back in place so that I can get this out, but at least it's not flopping down now. So we'll try to just go in here real quick and just go bzz, bzz, and then I can take that striker out later and fix that properly. But right now I don't want to get distracted, but it was bent way down, and of course the welds are broken, and I think that's pretty good now. We may give it another whack or three. Yeah, I think that'll work. It's just spot welded, so there's a very good chance this is going to, oh, it didn't. I was going to say there's a good chance it's going to break off, but it didn't, so that's good. I think what we're going to do is just take the striker off completely for now. Okay, I got a little bit carried away there on that. It's my spot weld caught the edge of the washer, so I got to take my cutoff wheel and real quick, and it'll be fine. The shims are still kind of stuck down in there, and that's fine for now, so I'm not going to worry about that. We've got to pull all that apart and take it and fix it, so this is good enough. We'll just leave the striker off for now and get the door to close properly, and then we'll deal with all of that later. There are two things that are going to be your friend: some thin plywood and some paint sticks, in order to get these doors lined up properly. I just took this thin shim wood, stuck it in the door jamb, close the door. It's a little bit high, which I actually like. So now the only thing we have to do is get the front of this door up just a bit. You can definitely tell we have a frame that is most likely tweaked, but we're still down just a Nova here, but not bad. We'll probably add a paint stick. I prefer to have it just a little bit high and then let it settle in, especially when we got bad hinges. But it's not bad. It's actually a little high right there. We could probably run some duct tape across there and that would hold it. But we still got to get the front end raised up some. I'm really concerned with how I'm seeing that fender sag like that. I'm going to have you watch this gap right here with me while I jack. The front end is jacked up. I'm going to lower it and raise it back up, and we'll see if this is splitting or not. So if you see here, I've created a shim pack, taped it together, and it's 3 paint sticks plus a piece of that shipping pallet. And then I think back here I need one more paint stick to get the back of that door up. So I'm going to go get that, and then the door height should be about right, and I think we just need to adjust it front and back. So that's next. Now that the shims are in place, if you can see those, we got to get this door closed without destroying everything we've done. So what I do is I just get the door to where it just starts to bump my shims. I grab it inside or outside, it doesn't matter. Just pick it all up loose on the hinges, set it down, and let it snuggle into place. It's good up front. Yep, a little teeny bit high, which I'm fine with. It's good back here now, but the door is back this way too far, so we need to slide it forward. So there's a trick for that as well. So I put my tape on the edge of the door and on the quarter panel. If I was restoring this car and stripping it, I wouldn't even bother with that. We're just going to take a pry bar, stick it in here, and move that door forward so that our gap is split both front and back. We're good here. I feel comfortable with that. Let's see what we look like on the front. The gap is actually pretty good. A little bit tight down here. That could be the fender itself now that I'm looking at it. This gap came right in, right where I want it. The door is out a little bit, but remember, it's going to pull in when we tighten down the hinges. So, we fell, maybe? Well, not that much. Could come up a little bit back here again. It could just be that it settled in. Now I want to hold that gap right where I want it. I'm going to shove some paint sticks in there, so I'll be right back. I think these will be pretty close. Probably should have taped them together. Doesn't really much matter where, in my opinion. Okay, we're good there. We're good there. You make sure the front is good. All right, let's get you over there, take a look at it. You can see what we got. It may be just a little bit wide right there, but I'm good with that for now. There's our back gap there, fairly uniform. Again, that metal plate down there is kind of screwing things up a little bit. Not worried about the bottom edge for now. Then our front looks a whole lot better than it did. It's still a little wide on the top, but main thing is we're just a little teeny bit low right there. May try to raise that up just a little bit, but we're getting close. The back fell down again too, so although it's not bad, it's pretty close. When you push it in just a little farther, it seems to be like it pulls up a little bit. So I'll have to make a decision if I'm going to bring that up just a little bit more or tighten it down and see where it goes. I'd rather it was a little high, so I think I might need to make a couple of minor adjustments here. Really close, I just threw some tape over to kind of hold it. We got to go inside the car from the other side and tighten up the bolts. Won't that be fun? All we need to tighten up is 2 of them, and that should do the job. So I put one more paint stick up here in the front, and it brought this up to where I like it a lot better. All right, there we go. Lined up really nice at the top. Our gap here ended up tightening back up. I'll explain that in a minute. And you can see we're lined up really nice here at the top. We line into the cowl good now, so everything's good there. Our gap here is too wide. It's because the entire door is back that way about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch too much. What happened was when I was in there and tightening things down, the door shifted out a little bit. The tape wasn't enough to hold the shims in place and it slid back. I'm going to leave it for that for now. I could spend hours getting that better. What I'm doing is when I'm here by myself, if I had somebody else with me, this would have gone almost as fast and we would have been able to hold that. Everything else I did, I would do even if somebody was here. But somebody else could have held that door shut on those shims to make sure it didn't slide back. I could loosen it all up again and try again. I don't think it's worth it because what I'm really looking for is a change. As long as I know what that gap is like there, and as long as I know that the tops of these panels are lined up, I'm good with that for now. So pushing this back forward won't be that big of a deal, unless it bugs me. I got to think about it, I guess. Maybe I will go ahead and loosen it up and slide it back forward just a little bit. It won't take a second, and we'll see if we can do a better job because I have the striker in the proper place now, and that's going to help us significantly with this. Much happier with that. Took me about another 20 minutes to just go through and do it again. So there we go. Now we have a nice gap. Everything lines up. I readjusted the striker so the door isn't shutting too much. It's about as good as an A-body is going to get. We're just ever teeny bit so slightly low there, but I'm not going to worry about that as long as I know where we need to be. So I was a little bit better before, but it's minor. Hard to do this when you're by yourself, that's for sure. But I think that gives me a good baseline to know the 2 places I need to watch are changing this body line here. If the front end is sagging down, changing this body line here if the back end is sagging down when we cut everything out. So the next steps on this car then, well, let's talk about that. Well, that's definitely good progress here on the Forsyth Duster. We got to do the same thing on this side. it's not as bad, so it shouldn't take as long. But the problem with this side is it's lather, rinse, and repeat, first of all, and I want to show you how I do things, but I can't even film over here. It's just too crowded right now. So I'll go ahead and get that one done off camera, and then we'll be ready to start jigging this car up and getting everything squared up so that we can cut the floor out and start working on repairing those inner rocker panels and getting a new floor pan put in the car, because that's what's coming. It's going to be a massive step forward on this car in fairly short order compared to Stitches, because we're making everything by hand over there, and here we're just going ahead and purchasing the parts and putting them in the car. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate those of you who support the channel and make all of this possible. We're on the Face thing. Instagram loves us too, so we're over there /mycarshop. And don't forget, rock!